Tuesday, October 7th, 2020, and with 7 days left till Election Day, I'll be welcoming Olga Lautman. She's an investigative journalist and researcher with an expertise in Russia and organized crime. We'll be talking about the continued active measures to interfere with the American elections and Trump's relationship with Vladimir Putin and the Russian oligarchs. All this and more on the AM Report. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the broadcast. It is Tuesday, October 27th, and we've got a lot of headlines to cover this morning. With 1 week to go until Election Day, 66 million Americans have voted already, according to the U.S. Elections Project. The Republican-controlled U.S. Senate has successfully confirmed Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court over the objections of Senate Democrats and the majority of Americans who believe this process was illegitimate. House Judiciary Committee GOP could hardly contain their excitement, and they announced their confirmation vote while taunting Hillary Clinton with a happy birthday tweet. The 5 conservatives on the Supreme Court have affirmed an appeals court ruling overturning a decision that would have extended Wisconsin's mail-in ballot receipt deadline by 6 days. And in that concurrence, Justice Kavanaugh outwardly endorsed legal theories that could help Donald Trump halt the counting of mailed ballots after Election Day, or even worse, could help override the results with the help of Republican state legislatures, which is, of course, the horror scenario that we have all been sort of worried about with only 7 days left till Election Day. So all eyes are on Amy Coney Barrett, and because she sort of refused to answer any questions regarding her ideological perspectives, we're not exactly sure what she'll do with election-related disputes. Senate Democrats are sending out lots of emails this morning, hoping to have a good fundraising haul because of this confirmation vote, which they view as being the second Republican theft of a Supreme Court seat in only the last 3 years. So that's the headlines this morning. And speaking of the election, I'd love to welcome Olga Lautman to the program. She's an investigative journalist and a researcher with an expertise in Russia and organized crime. Welcome to the program, Olga Lautman.
Hi, Alex. How are you? Thank you for having me on.
Thanks for coming. I'm really excited to have you. And you've been doing a lot of great work. I've actually been sort of weaving in and out, following you for a few years, because I was a person that was fascinated by the Russian active measures in the 2016 election and the effects that it may have had on the outcome of that election. So can you give us a little bit of a general understanding of what the Russian modus operandi is in terms of American elections and our democracy?
Well, basically, Russia has been for a while. They have been on a path of, weakening democracy, weakening our alliances. So, I mean, as much as we were a target, there were several countries in Europe that they've been trying to overturn their democracy. So basically, with that said, they use the same exact active measures. It's always they hack into people's emails, they release emails, they fabricate emails, they run a disinformation campaign via social media now, where they find any vulnerabilities in the society, and then they will amplify it and use it to their advantage to cause a big divide. And basically, 4 years later, you see where we are. Right now, we are so divided that you can't even have a normal conversation. And a lot of it has to do with their active measures, which, by the way, they've been doing for decades. We just never had, the Republican Party and the U.S. president who was assisting them in doing this,
Yeah, and speaking of the U.S. president, there have been a lot of questions raised over the last few years about Donald Trump's relationship to Russia and to Vladimir Putin. We recall during the 2016 election, he denied ever having met Putin. And I actually have a video here of a little of best of Donald Trump in 2016 and some of his contradictory statements that he made on the campaign trail. Let's take a look at that. So, it's a best of, and it's his denials of ever having known Vladimir Putin, and then years earlier having said that he does know him. The evidence that he's taken all expense paid trips to Russia since the 1980s on the expense of the Russian government, which, by the way, was funded by the KGB at the time, which is their spy operation. What exactly is Donald Trump's relationship to Russia in terms of what we know from reporting, and why is that problematic?
Well, his relationship goes back actually to the late 70s with Soviet immigrant who came to the U.S. And you're correct. Since the 80s, he has been flirting with the Soviets. He took that trip in 1987 to Moscow, which was arranged by KGB, and they would have been, monitoring and following him. And it was basically a dangle, because they invited him. I mean, who would believe that during communism they would want gold towers in the middle of Red Square, showing capitalism? Like, that's absolutely absurd. So it was a dangle. But what's interesting from that trip is that when he came back, he, who was known to be cheap, took ads out and basically ran Russian talking points in the ads, which is that we shouldn't be paying, for defense of Japan. We shouldn't have, be this close with our allies. Our allies need to pay more. It's basically the same exact thing as he's doing with NATO. Since then, he probably for the past 40 years, he's been involved with Russian intelligence officers, Kremlin-linked oligarchs. I mean, they literally flood every single property of his firm, from Tower Fifth Avenue to Sunny Isles to Kazakhstan to Panama. He was involved with them, Baku. I mean, it's endless. The amount of money that he moved for the Soviets and then the Russians doesn't end. As far as for presidency, I mean, his loyalty lies with the Kremlin, and it has been, he has demonstrated it over and over. He has betrayed our allies. He has attacked our NATO allies. I mean, his, allies that he considers are Russia, North Korea, and Saudi Arabia, whereas, our natural allies, he has alienated them. He pulled troops out from Germany. We found out the report that there were bounties put on American military. He betrayed our military by calling that a hoax. I mean, he's shown over and over that his allegiance is with the Kremlin. And we are in a very dangerous situation. The Kremlin helped install him. This is how I got involved, because I monitor Russian, media and social media my whole life. And I saw the active measures being played out on the Russian side in 2015. I mean, for me, it's normal to see because I'm half Russian, half Ukrainian. So this has been happening in Ukraine forever. But for them to be directing it so directly at America, that is where I got concerned. And I mean, it never got stopped. He got in, and he's done everything to basically every American who tried to defend the country, he accuses of treason. And every single American who helped him steal 2016, he, considers them a patriot. So, and we've seen 4 years later, I mean, I say he's like a kamikaze pilot. Like, he came in to America and he's doing everything from the inside to implode us here and to destroy our image, our standing, our relationships on the world stage. I mean, the KGB couldn't have asked for anything more successful than what they're getting.
Right, and 17 intelligence agencies reached a consensus in 2016 that the Russians had been attacking our democracy via these social media attempts to divide the electorate, infiltrating activist groups, and perpetuating racial messaging that was very divisive. They had actual people joining these Facebook groups to write comments and troll them. And then we learned that they actually have attempted to hack our voter systems. Can you describe to me what we know about actual election hacking and whether there should be a concern about them actually trying to manipulate voter counts?
I mean, it's definitely a concern. Again, Ukraine was a testing ground for everything that Putin has unleashed on the West. I mean, he literally, from everything from disinformation, except in Ukraine, it wasn't memes. I mean, the memes were more directed to Trump supporters. In Ukraine, it was lengthy, articles of why they should have a closer relationship with the Kremlin and move away from the West. So in Ukraine, they did try this. The capability of changing votes, they do have it, but it's a very small percentage. I mean, I'm more scared of the Republicans, doing it from the inside, like the Republican leaders, than actually like the Russians. They do have the capability, but it's on a small percentage, and that's why we need to vote in mass numbers, because they can maybe change a few percentage points. If there's a huge gap, there's absolutely no way they can, overturn that election.
Right, because we can document and we can verify and double check on voter rolls and precinct vote counts, so it would be hard to manipulate the vote count. But I think I'd really like to ask you about compromise, the concept of compromise, and this idea that's been passed around that people like Donald Trump are not necessarily double agents or working in actual cahoots with the Russian government, but might be something called either a useful idiot, which is also a form of a Russian asset, or have some compromising information on them. Would you describe just how the Russian spy operation manages to control Western media figures and politicians?
All right, so compromise obviously does exist. That's one of their oldest methods. I mean, they always try to find compromising information or something that can humiliate or destroy, someone's career, and then they'll use it against them. Sometimes they'll even approach people and they'll start off small and continue upping it until that person crosses the line, and then, they have enough information now to blackmail him. With Trump, I don't think he's a useful idiot. I honestly see him as a business partner of Russia and the Soviet Union, and then Russia, because first of all, he's shameless. For the Kremlin to compromise him, yes, they do have compromising information of all his every single time he had a transaction with Russian mafia that was documented. It's not like Italian mafia where it happens and that's it. They are Russian mafia so connected with the Kremlin because the Kremlin is basically Russian intelligence services. They use Russian mafia for dark, operations that they want plausible deniability. And then the oligarchs who are the money people on the front of it. So with him, they definitely would have compromising information, but I see him more as a partner with them. We have a different definition of agent. With us, it's, active agents, whatnot. With the Russians, they target political people for, and they'll list it as an agent, but they'll target them, for their access to political figures or for media figures or whatever avenue it is that they are going. So it's not necessarily when you think of a Russian, someone who's an agent that, they're running and dropping off some kind of like information and then marking an X on a tree and then leaving like Hansen did, there are many different ways that they work. And even with as far as media, you saw with the report, when Manafort was working for Yanukovych in Ukraine, how he hired the Wall Street Journal. I forgot his name, but he hired the Wall Street Journal reporter for two reasons. One, to prop up Yanukovych's image, and two, to run like a dirty operation against Hillary Clinton and tarnish her image because she was Secretary of State. So they do use media. I mean, and sometimes a lot of people in media could be labeled as useful idiots, but you'll see like, a few who you see them touting the Kremlin talking points, and that's where it becomes a little more evident. And then it's just, as far as our media, the problem is that our media just doesn't, a lot have never like worked in that part of the world to understand how common it is, like in Ukraine and Belarus and Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, this happens. I mean, this is like a daily occurrence where somebody's loyalty lies to another country for money or for, business relationships or whatever the case is,
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining the broadcast this morning, Olga Lautman. This has been Olga Lautman. She is an investigative journalist and researcher who has done a lot of reporting on Russia and organized crime around the world. Olga, where can people find you and support your work?
Well, I'm on Twitter mainly right now. I'm expanding, but right now I'm on Twitter and under my name. And that's it. And eventually I'm gonna, after elections, right now I'm too busy monitoring elections to make sure, that we can get a handle of everything coming. After that, I will. And I am starting a TV show on HAPS. I've been, the past few weeks I've done it, but I am going to continue and try to get more into a routine weekly show where I can discuss overseas events and Russia and in general, U.S. politics.
Fantastic, because there's a lot there, and we could use some more dedicated reporting to that. So thank you so much, Olga Lautman, for joining the broadcast. This is the AM Report for HAPS News. I'm Alex Mahajan. We are live every weekday morning at 7:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Eastern, with all of your quick political news and headlines to get your day started right. If you like this journalism, please consider sponsoring it. Visit me at haps.tv/@Alex. Consider buying me a cup of coffee. We will be back tomorrow with Jillian Freeland. She's a candidate for Congress in Colorado, and she'll be talking about the state of the race. There's only 7 days left till Election Day, and if you haven't yet, get out there, vote early, vote, vote, vote. IWillVote.com if you need help to find out how to make a voting plan. Thanks so much, and we'll see you all tomorrow morning. Thanks, Olga.